Hey, what's up, guys? This is Chase with the Hanging With Azarian podcast, episode number 8. The camera might not look like it's episode 8 because I had myself out of focus. I knew it was bound to happen on one episode, but I finally did it. I learned through failure, and that's kind of the topic of this episode, as me and my boy Aiden from PhotoPass at Disney World kind of talk about film school, the pros and cons, and just the struggles of being a filmmaker and why we just keep doing it, I guess. So, hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and thanks for joining again. Peace. Aiden, we're on the podcast, man. I hop right into it. This is Aiden, by the way.
Hi.
Me and Aiden were in the same college program. If you didn't work for Disney, college program is internship group. And he was definitely not only one of my favorites. I'm going to praise him a little bit. Pretty much everyone's favorite at Disney PhotoPass.
No, that was Chase. Chase took the cake on that one.
We got the two favorites on the same podcast, I guess. But yeah, Aiden's just a very easy person to talk to. He was someone I was like, man, I gotta get Aiden on at some point. Aiden was technically the honorary first guest when me and Justin...
it was a good time.
Yeah, me and Justin early in quarantine, we were like, oh, we're gonna be here for a while. Let's try and start a podcast. And we recorded this one. It was just us three at our kitchen table over there, just really shitty. And
it was a good time.
It was a good time, and then
you could see the seed of something
that was growing.
Yeah,
and now we're here, whatever episode this is. So, Aiden, how you doing, man?
Pretty good, pretty solid. Still, living through 2020 extended.
You think? Your 2021's not off to...
No.
Okay, fair.
Still, quarantining, figuring life out. Just kind of enjoying myself. Milking those unemployment benefits till kingdom comes.
Yes, sir. You gotta do what we gotta do. Hey, gotta take advantage of unemployment while we can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Aiden even pitched me that I need to get back on some unemployment. I thought,
I'm like, at what point in our lives will we be making this amount of money without working?
That's what I was saying for months. Yeah. Thank you, Mickey Mouse, for so me and Aiden both got fired too. So this isn't like a shit talking Disney video. This is a film.
We both loved our time there.
Yes, we both had nothing but great things to say. But it was a good
Star
time.
review.
Yeah, it was a good time. But I want to bring Aiden on because I've been wanting to talk about film school for a while. But I don't know if I had anyone on. I could be wrong off the top of my head. But I don't think I brought anyone on that's actually been to film school.
Okay, cool.
So I was like, let me bring on someone that, A, went to a different film school to me. So trying to get two different perspectives on that. And two, this wasn't planned, but I just found out Aiden's planning on going to graduate school. So we could even talk about like the extension of school in a way. Because I think it's an interesting topic because even if you think you want to change your major, or even if you're like, for some reason, 17 and listening to this podcast right now, unlikely because everyone that listens definitely knows me at this phase. But I think there's a lot of pros, a lot of cons, and I think it's not like black and white where it's like, oh, it's definitely great or it's definitely bad. It's got a bunch of different angles to take it from. So I guess starting off, I went to Rutgers up in New Jersey, Mason Gross Film School, and Aiden went to...
LSU.
There we go.
And
your favorite place.
Yeah, my favorite place in the whole world. Go visit Baton Rouge.
It's a gem from what I've heard.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so Aiden, so maybe we could even introduce, like, when did you become interested in filmmaking or just art in general, and what made you, like, did you apply knowing you were going to major in film, or was that something you figured out after you got into the school?
So actually, I started my formal film training before college. Mm-hmm. I actually so I'm from New Orleans originally, and there's a school there called the New Orleans Center for Creative Arts.
Okay.
And it's a now full-fledged high school, but at the time it was a half-day program where you would go to your academic school during the first half of the day, and then you would get bussed over to NOCA is what we call it. And so I did media arts there my senior year of high school. And that was kind of the first time that I got a hands-on look. And why I actually applied to NOCA was my older sister was in the media arts program, but she was more of a programmer type. She did a lot of stop motion, stuff like that. And I had always enjoyed storytelling. I've always enjoyed writing. And so I didn't really know how to combine all of the elements of art that I liked. I liked photography, all these things. And then my sister suggested that I apply to this program. And so I did that, and then it was a wonderful year there. It's a great program. I learned how to set up a camera. I learned, how to do 3-point lighting and how to set up audio and all these things that are just kind of, basics. And that was kind of the first start to being like, okay, this is something I really like to do. This is something that I would like to pursue further. And then I went to LSU. I actually started as an advertising major because I really wanted to do film, but I wasn't sure kind of pros and cons of would film school be worth it.
Right.
Especially, it wasn't a very developed film program at the time. And it's a state school that's a poorly funded state. So, so it was like worrying if I was going too niche into a subject. So I actually started out doing advertising. I did advertising for 2.5 years. I really liked the creative aspect of it. Then we took a class on kind of how to advertise to people, and that just morally wasn't something that I liked. And that being said, like, it's a great program. It's just personally, I just didn't vibe with the curriculum anymore. So then I actually went into an art major for a semester, and I realized I wasn't. We had to do like fine arts and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
not
like,
my thing. Yeah,
I was like, and it was to build up to a digital art degree, which was kind of like digital graphic design. But I was too old to be learning the fundamentals of art at that point. It wasn't something I was passionate enough about. So then I kind of took the plunge, and I was like, all right, it's time to go over to the film school. So I didn't actually move over to the film school until my junior year. And then very quickly after, I switched majors. I did my first Disney college program. So I really wasn't in the film school for more than 1.5 years.
Okay.
That being said, I was a film minor my entire time in college. So I had been taking classes within the school. I just wasn't declaring it. And my senior year was my favorite year of college by far.
Easily.
Yeah, I mean, because it was the creative freedom we had and the projects that we were doing, and it felt like we were, I had a teacher who would set things up like we were actually filming for like a real set. And like we were creating actual things, but he didn't treat us like we were students. We were his coworkers.
Right.
And we had to give pitches on why we should be a certain position. We had to submit resumes to prove that we could do that position. And that experience really solidified for me that I loved making films, because it was, you have these weekends where you barely sleep, you're filming 12 hours a day, you're eating nothing, but it's so much fun. Like, you can't even describe it to people. It's just so much fun being on set. And like, those little moments where you goof off, or when you finally, there's just one take that for whatever reason the actor can't get the line down, or the lighting doesn't feel right, and then it clicks and you get it. And it's just like this camaraderie with the rest of the crew. And so that was really the first time that I was like, this is something I would like to pursue professionally. At that time, I wasn't really ready to go out on my own and kind of take this leap. So that's why I ended up going back to Disney, because Chase and I'm sure you've talked about it on here, we were photographers at Disney.
Yeah, for a little bit.
Yeah, so like for a short period of time. So it was kind of along what I wanted to do, but it felt like a safe place to kind of be there for a couple years, figure out where I wanted to go, grow artistically, and Disney's a big company, so it's like having that on your resume is always a great thing, especially if you're going into media. So that was kind of my journey through film school, and kind of where I'm at right now. I'm still kind of figuring out where I want to go from there. I've started doing a lot more smaller projects of stuff that I want to be doing. And I also, through Disney, found a passion for photography. I used to be almost exclusively videography. Now I'm almost exclusively photography.
Opposite, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I found things that I liked and I found things that I didn't like, and I think that that's the important part about film school. There was a bunch of roles that I did in film school that I realized okay, like I was a unit production manager for a shoot. I would never want to be a unit production manager, but it taught me a lot. And it taught me areas where I needed to grow and stuff like that. And then I was a camera operator on a couple of shoots. I loved being a camera operator. So I think one of the positives of film school is that film school is one of those things where it's very malleable. It's a lot of different things because filmmaking is 17 million things packed into one word. And so film school gives you the option to test out a bunch of things and figure out what you're good at, because it's like, I like audio. Could I ever make it as anything in audio? No, I'm bad at it. And film school taught me that, but it also gave me the liberty to try it. So I think like that's one of the big pros of it. If it's something that you're interested in dipping your foot in, it gives you so many resources to try so many things. Because if you're on a professional set and you're like, hey, come on, give me a go at the camera, they're going to be like, no.
Get the hell out of here.
So it's like, it's a place where you kind of get to experiment. And I think that that's cool. And also so many student films are based off of your own ideas. And from a lot of my friends and also people that, you know, big filmmakers, a lot of the big movies that they have that come out and boost them to stardom or, you know, whatever, are things that they came up in college. And so I think like that's also really important, is that it's a place where you get to really kind of develop your creative style. You get to develop what type of stories you want to tell. And, you know, you're always going to, if you want to make a career out of it, there's going to be projects that you work on that you're less enthusiastic than others. That's just, you know, the name of the game. But at the same time, it kind of, I think, helps you define what you're willing to work on and what you're not willing to work on.
I mean, I think you put it pretty well. I'm trying to think. Very, very brief summary of how I got into film school, I guess. Because I'm kind of like the opposite of you. So it was sick that you had like a half-day high school thing.
Yeah, that was the coolest thing
I've never heard of that. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
I've never heard of it any place other than where I'm from.
Hey, you struck gold then, man. Yeah, that's how it worked.
Cool.
So, yeah, even my high school didn't even have like a video production class. Like,
that's crazy.
I know. I didn't.
Do they now?
I have no idea. They had a photojournalism class, but I took theater instead. I don't know why, because you had to take like one art, I think. I don't know if you had the same thing. Well, you went to art school, so you had to do it. But I was like, yeah, let me learn about acting, I guess. Like, not that I wanted to be an actor, but I was like, let me get the feel of like just screenwriting or something. Yeah. I thought it was the best direction possible, and I was kind of like, yeah, I definitely kind of want to make movies, and I wasn't really sure. And it got to the point probably like my junior, senior year when they were like, all right, what do you really want to do? And I was like, I definitely want to make movies. I know everyone's telling me film school is a very bad idea. Like, you're not going to get a job. You're going to live in your mom's basement. I understand all the things that come with saying I'm a film major for sure. But I didn't really care. I was like, you know what? I know this is what I want to do. If I fail at it, it's better than going and getting a degree and doing something with my life that I would have the whole time been like, damn, what if I tried the film thing? So that's how I looked at it. I got into Rutgers. Rutgers is a phenomenal school. It's the state school of New Jersey. And it was weird because the art school, Mason Gross, was definitely like world renowned, like some of the best dance and like performative arts. But the film program, it was their first year. And
that's how it was at LSU.
So you were the very first year as well. Okay, so this is good. I get to talk to you about this then, because it was almost like me taking a risk, but they were also taking a risk on me because I got denied from a lot of film schools just because I didn't know how to operate a camera. Like, I was working at McDonald's. That's how I kind of bought my first camera, because I knew I had to shoot something to get into a film school. So I saved up at McDonald's over the summer, got the Canon T3i that I'm recording on over there still. And I made a really shitty short film called Purgatory. And the plot twist was he was in Purgatory at the end. So Rutgers was like, you know what? It's kind of shitty, but at least like he has ideas, so we'll take him in. And what was cool about the program was, since it was so new, because sometimes like you get a teacher or just a department in general or job, it could be anything, and they're like, give us your feedback, and you know they don't really care about the feedback. They're kind of just whatever. This was one of the few times in my life where like when you told the department the feedback, they instantly were like, okay, they don't like this class. Let's try this class. Or what classes do you guys actually want to see? Yeah. If a majority of the kids said it, we ended up getting a class like that. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, it was cool in that regard, where it was like, I think the staff was very willing to like give you what you wanted and weren't like, this is the way we're doing it, which was cool. And yeah,
that is really awesome.
It was, yeah. It was nice. I spent 4 years there. After I graduated, it was like the last, I think, like 2 months. My plan was to just freelance when I got out of school and kind of just sleep on my dad's couch, bang out some projects, pay off my student debt, and then figure it out from there. And then I got referenced to there was this Disney college program I heard about my freshman year. I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I even considered applying my freshman year. I remember because I was like, I just wanted to work at Disney. I thought that would have been fun as fuck, for sure.
I mean, it's like,
why wouldn't you want to put that on your resume?
Yeah,
like, it would be a fun time.
You have no responsibilities. Like, it's a great time.
Exactly. And I planned to do it, and I went to my college advisor. I was like, hey, Karina, there's this thing. It sounds cool. Would I be able to do it? She was like, well, you can, but the problem is if you do it, like, they only had, since it was the first year of the program, there was specific classes that were only available in specific semesters.
Yeah.
And she was like, if you do it, you're going to be a year behind. And I was like, I don't want to do that.
No.
I'm going to get this done in 4 years. I kind of put it on the back burner. And then I remember I was talking to my sister, and she's like, oh, yeah, Disney, they do this college program thing. I was like, yeah, I heard of that. She's like, yeah, but you know they have a photography section, right? I was like, do they now? I kind of
like, wow.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let me see if they're still taking applications. It was the last possible day you could apply for this Disney college program. I was like, yeah, I'll throw my name out there. Took like the written test to make sure you're not a serial killer or whatever. That's
yes.
If you fail that test, I don't know what to tell you. Like, there's not much I can help you with, but got a phone interview. Did the phone interview, admittedly very hungover, almost forgot I had it, and I guess I made Patty laugh a little bit, and I got the gig.
There you go.
And then I met Aiden, and we worked at Disney. So I guess that's the baseline, the how we got to that point. So what was your favorite? I guess we'll talk about the pros first. What was like your favorite part of film school? Like, obviously, I kind of agree with you how you go in, since filmmaking is such a broad thing, there's so many jobs within that. It does do a good job of putting you in a bunch of different roles when you could fail as much as you want. There's not really going to be a huge downfall. So besides that, what was like your favorite part of film school?
Honestly, I think learning how to have a voice. Because not only do you have to create projects that get a point across, but you also have to learn to communicate with people, how to work on a set with people, and how to critique people and how to take critiques. Mm-hmm. And I think that those are skills that will go with you no matter where you go in life. I think that it made me not only a better person, but just an more well-rounded person. I think that is the beauty of being in the arts, is that you really have to learn that sometimes that your idea is so strong in your head, but that doesn't mean that it's going to translate to everyone else. And I think learning that is a really hard reality, because I think, at least me as an artist, I'm very perfectionist.
Yeah, I think everybody is at first. Yeah.
And you just, you want what you want, what is in your head, you want to be in everyone's head when they experience your art. And then you start to realize that the beauty of art is that people take what you have created and they can apply it to themselves, and they can interpret it in their own way, and it becomes a different piece of art for every single person that consumes it. And I think that was one of my favorite things about it, is just learning that, you know, your voice matters, but it matters because it allows other people to have a voice. And it's all kind of interconnected and interwoven. And I think that, I don't know, I think that to me has always been my favorite part of filmmaking also. It's just that camaraderie at every level of it, at making it, at consuming it. Like, it's just, you know, it does feel like a big family. And it's like, even in a movie theater, when you're watching a movie and there's other people around you, you know, you're all watching that together, you're experiencing that together. And I think that, like, that is something that in film school they teach you how to kind of do. Just kind of have that camaraderie with each other, how to communicate. And again, even if you decide after you go to film school, hey, this wasn't for me, like, I gave it a good go, communication skills are important no matter where you go. Yeah. And so I think, like, that was my favorite part. It's just, like, learning how to be a better communicator, you know, and learning that, again, like, what I have to say matters and how I say it matters. So
no, I definitely feel that, man. Awesome. I would agree. I was going to bring up, too, critiquing each other's work in a class was definitely probably even though I wouldn't necessarily call it my favorite part of film school, it was definitely the strongest of a reality check, because I think everyone, not to think that everyone thinks they're the best artists when they first start, but they're like, oh, I got all these ideas and they're all great, and kind of like how you were saying, like you said it perfectly, where even though it's great in your head, what really matters is how well do you know everything else to make it come to life in its best possible realistic version. So I would just remember bringing stuff into class and then watching people's reactions, and me watching it in person, I'm like, oh, this came out so much shittier than I thought it would. Yeah, and there was something, I don't want to say beautiful, but it was kind of beautiful. Beautiful might sound a little corny, but it was kind of like, it's one of those few times where, to put it best, right, I think for someone that hasn't gone to film school, when you're, say, like a business major, most of your stuff, I'm not a business major, so I don't know specifically, but a lot of papers, a lot of probably research stuff, exams, and it's very, no matter what you do, it's really only between you and yourself, the grade, unless you tend to share that with someone. And I think film school was easy in the sense that it's not really hard to get a pretty decent GPA in film school. But at the same time though, what film school does differently compared to taking an exam, for example, or writing a paper, is whatever your project is, you have to put that out in front of a class of usually about 15 to 20 people and a professor that probably 90% of them know what they're talking about. And that in itself takes way more courage, I think, than just sitting down studying for a test. I know it's like a different field, but I don't know if you ever shared that.
I mean, I agree completely, because it's like, also, a lot of the times, at least in my school, the student projects we made were personal to some degree. And even if they're not personal, you're still putting your idea out there, and someone might think it's a stupid idea. And that's hard, because it's something that you cultivated. You spent a lot of time creating. And I think just as important as it was learning how to take critiques, it was also so important to learn how to give them. Because I think that that's more how the world works. Then you don't just have a relationship with one, teacher in life, and you just are graded. Like, we live in a peer-to-peer society, And so I think, like, film school really prepared me for that. It prepared me for the jobs that I've had after film school, that when people come to me and they tell me, hey, you did this great, but we would like to see improvement there. Film school taught me not to take that personally, because film school, I would create projects that bared everything about myself and I put so much into, and people would stand up there and be like, I don't like it. I don't get it. And it's like, that's heartbreaking.
It is.
But then you learn that constructive criticism is your best friend. But in that, again, it goes back to that communication thing. You also have to learn how to give constructive criticism in a way that's constructive and not destructive. And I think that hurts a lot of people in life. I think a lot of people struggle with how to tell people how they're feeling about something. And I think that one of the best parts of going to into an artistic field is you have to confront those things so early on. You have to be able to work with people at your lowest point, when you haven't slept and you're just tired and you want to get the shot done and you're on take 13 and it should have taken one take. You have to be able to learn to talk to people calmly, have those conversations, how to look at someone else's piece of work and give them criticisms that they can change. Because there was a lot of people's work that I just flat out did not like the concept. But was it well done? Absolutely. So it's like also learning to distinguish those things, that distinguishing just because something isn't your taste doesn't mean that it's bad.
Right.
And so I think those, again, are skills that can only be learned, I feel like, in degree paths that have such peer-to-peer interaction, that have these forced group, and I know we all hate group projects, everyone's like, oh, group projects, but like filmmaking school is one huge group project, and so it really pushes you outside your comfort zone. And I think that is, again, such a huge plus, because I think it's something that most people struggle with in life. And I don't know, I feel like it just humbles you, and then you're pretty chill because you're like, oh yeah, like, not everyone's gonna like my stuff. It's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but that's okay, because I'm not making it for everyone.
I think going off that is, because I agree, there's this because there would be, for example, I think comedy is a very hard genre to tackle, because like comedy in a way is already subjective. Like, there's some people that have dark humor, you know what I mean? There's some people that like the Adam Sandler goofy thing, so even in that, when someone would try to make something funny, it's like, it's hard to...
It's a hit or miss.
Yeah, because you can't really say, like, oh, it's not funny if it's not also your style of humor. And I think kind of breaking that into another thing, maybe talking about professors a little bit, because I think professors are definitely make or break the class. Because whenever someone asks me, like, oh, did you have, like, a favorite class at school, I would instantly say, like, any class that Patrick Stetner taught. You know, like, he was the best teacher for sure. Like, I remember some of the classes, but anytime he was teaching, like, I got the most value. And he was somebody that, kind of going off what you said, he was very... Because some teachers, I won't name names, but sometimes it felt like they wanted everyone's film to be, whether it be more narrative or more experimental, they had, like, their own... kind of agenda in a way, like, I make movies this way and I think movies that are made this way are a little bit better, whereas someone like Patrick Stetner was very like, I know what you're trying to go for and I'm going to try and get you the best possible version of the thing you're trying to go to. So I don't know if were there certain professors that we've talked before that you really love, were there any professors that you were like, fuck that professor, kind of a little bit? I mean, anything like that?
I mean, and I will sing this man praises till I die. Glenn Petrie, look him up. He had some movie about a Cajun person, and it won a Golden Globe in the 80s. Like, super awesome guy, super chill. He was probably the most influential person that I had in college that was like a mentor. He was just someone who... He pushed us, but he pushed us in whatever we wanted to be pushed in. So it wasn't like he had one style of filmmaking that he, wanted us to succeed at, and that was all he could see. And then beyond that, he was like, whatever. It was like, if someone really liked documentaries, he would push them in that way. And so I thought that was really awesome. And of course, I had other professors who, I think being in a relatively new program, a lot of my program was film history, and so like that was cool to a certain degree. Like, I took this entire class on a filmmaker named Agnes Varda, may she rest in peace. She died last year. Anyway, so awesome filmmaker, would have never known about it, but it was like very niche subject matter and stuff like that, which was an awesome class, and we actually ended up making projects in that class, and they were very experimental because she was very experimental. But like, that class wasn't about the technicalities. It was about learning about a filmmaker's kind of style and then trying to emulate it. And it was, those classes were cool because, again, you can't be a good filmmaker if you don't understand the history of where film came from. That's what I personally think. And if you're not interested in it. And so, like, it was so cool to learn about, again, people I probably would have never looked into, but I definitely enjoyed the classes that were more technically based. I really enjoyed, there was an editing class that I took that was really cool because it was just, we got into the nitty gritty of it, and they used the language that you use in filmmaking and stuff like that, and there is a very specific language and stuff like that, so kind of breaking down those things so you're able to communicate with professionals was so important. And I think the professors that I liked the most were professors who had worked in film. Because, again, we did have a lot of history classes, and some of those professors were proficient, had worked in film, stuff like that. A lot of them had not. They were just very well researched in, whatever they were doing. They had PhDs in film, which is awesome, like, straight up awesome, and I, value that a lot. But it was the technical stuff that I think made me the most excited, and I feel like is the most practical for being successful in film. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know how to set up your camera on a shoot, you've already shot yourself in the foot before it's even starting. And so, there's always room for growth, but there are some core principles that you need to be able to do in order to be successful moving after school. And so I think that those technical classes were so important. Those were the teachers that, you didn't just sit down and talk about it. It was, all right, we're going to learn audio today. Throws audio in front of you. How do you think it's supposed to be set up? You set it up. No. What level do you think it's supposed to be at? Oh, I don't know. 4 decibels. No.
Wrong.
And so it was that trial and error, but it was done in a way that, you didn't feel stupid. It was like, we're learning something, you're hands-on. And now I can set up any mic that's given to me because I was forced to do it. And so it's like, I think that stuff was so important. And also, it's just fun. Like, I think, like, film school, parents don't like it because they're like, what are you going to do? It is a lot of fun. Like, it's just, you get to go home, and while your friends are studying for their physics test, you're, filming baby turtles, right?
Yeah, exactly.
like stupid shit.
And then when you get done with that, you voice over the turtles and shit. And it's like just some dumbass, like,
and then
cartoon.
You stay up all night editing.
Yeah.
And the project's not due for a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you want to see what you made. And so it's like, you get to do fun stuff like that. There's also a huge problem-solving element in it, because you will never have enough money in your budget. You will never have the right equipment. Nothing is ever going to fall into place. You're never going to find the perfect location. So it's like, you do have to learn to, figure out how to make creative solutions to get what you want. And I think that, again, that's like an awesome life skill to have. And it's really fun because it forces you. I think a lot of times filmmakers get labeled as the maybe less artistic of the artistic bunch, because we're very, like, technical too. You're dealing with a bunch of equipment, stuff like that. But I would say they're some of the most creative people, because the amount of roadblocks that get put in front of filmmakers that they have to weasel their way around, create a solution, you wouldn't even want to know the type of dollies, like the stuff I've made dollies out of, and like the different lightings that I've rigged up, and like what I've taped to where, like, and that's, I don't know, I think like that's cool stuff. It teaches you also, like, you got to roll with the punches. Like, you can't get upset over the little stuff. Like, you can wipe up the spilt milk, it'll be okay. Like, and that's, I think, a huge thing about filmmaking, is that I think it's more mistakes than perfection.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and you learn to, let that stuff roll off your back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've I've seen a couple of my old short films from film school recently, and I would just watch some of the shit. I'm like, damn it, Chase. like, are you kidding me with this?
Yeah, but that's how I feel.
It's a weird thing. I do want to briefly, before I forget, because you talked about the film history classes versus, like, the practical classes. And I think film, like, I 100% agree with you. I think film history is incredibly important. I think if you don't know how film was started, who were the big dogs back in the day, who are the big dogs now, like, every aspect from modern to, like, when it first started, I just don't think you're going to make it, because you're just obviously not as interested in it from the get-go. I think it depended on the class. So what I liked what you said about your film studies class was, it seemed like, okay, we're going to study this filmmaker, and then we're going to try and make something like they did.
Yeah.
The film studies classes I had, they were kind of separated. So a majority of my classes, the ones I went to film school for, were the ones, how do I make a movie? How do I operate all this stuff? Those classes, for the most part, depending on the class, obviously, pretty good. We're going to talk about the German Expressionism movement. I get it. I think it is important. But I'm like, when I break this down, I'm paying thousands of dollars for this class. I could probably just look up all this stuff on YouTube, because I'm interested in all film. It's not like I'm not interested in German Expressionism. I'll bite my bullet. I'm a nerd for that kind of stuff. I think it's all interesting.
It is cool.
But I'm like, damn, do I really want to write 10-page papers in this class, though, and just be sitting here not making anything, when I could have probably just summed up this entire movement in like a 15, 20-minute YouTube video? I don't know.
I think they haven't figured out a way to distinguish, because, like, a lot of people who do go to film school end up going on to get PhDs in film history, and it's like they haven't distinguished those two, because those people do need to be doing that. Like, the people who intend on studying, categorizing, writing academic papers on film, absolutely, that is things that they need to be doing. They need to be writing 10-page papers. They need to have writing samples. They need to know how to write about film. So, like, film critiques and stuff like that. But if you want to go into practical application of film, I do think that schools struggle with figuring out a way to give you the foundation of film history and then send you on your way. Because I struggled a lot with, again, I also like German expression films, like...
This is the German expression podcast.
Yeah. Like, there was a lot of cool stuff that I would have never seen, like Nosferatu. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I saw it before film school, though.
Yeah.
I was a nerd.
I actually did too.
Okay,
but then I did have to watch it in film school. But like stuff like that, I never would have probably seen otherwise. And so like there are a bunch of films that I saw. There was a bunch of genres that I saw from these film history classes that, again, I just would have never... Like, I took an entire class on post-World War II Japanese film.
Okay.
Which, very niche subject. Wasn't the biggest fan of it.
Okay.
But, at the same time, I saw a lot of stuff that I never would have seen otherwise. So, it's like... You know, that stuff I think is cool because it exposes you to different filmmaking. And I know that there was probably someone sitting in that class who was like, holy shit, these are the types of films I want to make.
Oh, yeah.
Great
for,
for them. Like, you know, so I think it's difficult because it's like, how do you create a curriculum that doesn't oversaturate the history part of it, but also has enough history in it to expose people to things, because so much of film is just emulating and taking bits and pieces of film that you like. You know, if you like Michael Bay, you're gonna blow up shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is. So it's like, it is a lot of piecing together older pieces of work. So it's, I think it is that fine line of trying to figure out, okay, how can we, again, expose people to that without
only bringing you into the class to just expose you and not make anything.
I wish, because a lot of the classes we had at LSU were very like niche film classes. Like I said, we had that one class of Agnes Varda. Like that was all we learned.
She was the whole class. I thought you meant she was like a month of the class. No. She was the whole class. It
was an Agnes Varda class, which she actually died while we were in this class about her.
LSU did it.
And it was like the first class. My teacher had done all this research. It was the first class that I ever solely focused on her, and then she died. And I was like, are you kidding? And my teacher came in, she was sobbing.
Oh no.
Like she was a huge Agnes fan. Like,
I mean, I would assume so. She made the class.
It was her dream to make an Agnes Varda class. And like, you know, some of my best friends from film school I met in that class, probably because it was so weird. And like, our teacher was just so passionate. Our teacher was awesome. And like, Agnes Varda did do a lot of cool experimental stuff, and a lot of the stuff was like social critiques and stuff, which is right up my alley. So like, it was a really cool class. At the same time, that is super niche. And unless I'm at a cocktail party with a bunch of like rich, sophisticated like artists, probably not going to have to pull out my Agnes Varda knowledge. So it's like, how much did I really get from that class? In terms of my career, probably not much. So it's like, you know, trying to figure out ways, and that was a class that was required to take, not the Agnes Varda class, but you know, it was like one of the levels.
You have to take a history film class,
And so like, you know, I think trying to figure out ways to, again, expose to a greater detail of film, but maybe in shorter snippets.
You brought up film school friends. I think that's an important topic, because I think one of my last like really big positives I want to talk about with film school is like, it does not only introduce you to friends, but it gets you able to work with, because even in film school, there's every different type of kid. Yeah. There's the kid that wants to just make sports videos. There's the kid that really is into David Lynch and just wants to make Lynch things. And there's the kid that just has spoiled parents and like pick an easy major, and the kid just wants to go to film school. They literally have
a reg. Yeah. Like their dad bought them a red for like their 11th birthday. And you're like, what?
Dude, I'll never forget. I was at like this Christmas party, and this dude comes up. He's like, yeah, I mean, my parents like, you know, I kind of took over working their hotel, so they gave me like this $5,000 camera. I've never used it. And I was just like, dude, fuck off.
Like, literally give it to me.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll please, a donation for the needy this Christmas time. But, yeah, I think it was really good with making sure you are able to just not even get along with, just like work with literally anybody. Yeah, which was really nice to get used to. And also, this is the weird thing with film school, but me particular, was like, film school is really good at building up a connection base. Yeah. The problem is that connection base is in one location, and my dumbass decided to move to Florida, where I basically had to restart every single networking opportunity, which was definitely the, I guess, biggest challenge in moving down here. Was like, damn, if I really, like, I've met film people like you, obviously, and even though,
but I'm a transplant here too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I have no connections.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, I know if I go back to the New Jersey, New York area one day, I do have people that'll be around that I could probably hit up and ask for help. But I think that is one thing film school could get you. That you can make connections no matter what. But I think going to film school, getting in there with people your age that are just as inexperienced as you, and having teachers that have actually worked on movies that you could just hit up and be like, hey, can you just read this shitty thing I made and tell me how I can improve it, is really useful.
I agree. And I mean, like, the thing about, like, what you were saying, there are people that I never would have talked to. Mm-hmm. Like, there was no reason our, like, lives would have crossed paths other than film school. Mm-hmm. And those were some of the people that I had the most fun with. Mm-hmm. And, like, when it's like 2 a.m. on a set and you're delirious and you have that one person that you can just look at and laugh and, like, just, like, get you through it, that's always great. And, like, film school was also cool because, especially in group projects, like, you had to hear a bunch of different opinions and ideas and stuff like that. And people thought of things that I would have never thought about. Mm-hmm. And people had answers to problems that my brain was not hardwired to think. And some of those solutions are things that I still will put in my filmmaking today and stuff like that. So I think just having this think tank of young people who are so ready and willing to put themselves out there and just spitball ideas, you learn so much from the people around you. And I mean, like, again, it's a lot of fun. You meet people and you also, on the flip side, you meet people that you hate working with. There were people that if I had a class with them, I would do everything possible to not work with them because I just did not like their style of work. And there's always going to be people who don't meet expectations,
or they're just a dick.
Yeah, they just suck. Like, there was this guy, he just sucked. He didn't do his job, and then he got pissy, and he, like, walked off set and never came back. Damn. And we were like, good. He was a boom pole operator.
Oh, man.
I was like,
he's getting mad? Yeah.
Well, he was pissed that he was the boom pole operator. He wanted to do something more, but he was the casting director as well. It was stupid, but he was just entitled because he was an actor.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, no offense to any actors listening out there. Y'all are lovely people.
Did you ever act in your own films at all? No, really?
No.
I have a couple pretty bad performances on my laptop.
Well, when my sister was much younger, I acted in some of her stuff. I actually don't mind acting. It's just, like, I get too embarrassed, and, like, I retreat into my...
I don't know if embarrassed is the right word for me. I just know I'll never be a good actor.
Me too.
But there is some enjoyment of, if I'm like, okay, if we're just making this for practice, hell yeah, I'll act. Like, I'll be that guy.
I like that fun stuff where it's just, like, you're goofing around, and, like, if there was, like, a couple things for other people I had to act in, and, like, I always requested to play the funny character, because then you can kind of hide behind this, like, veil. Like, you don't have to be serious.
You could be like, I was trying to be bad.
Yeah, like, I was playing the bad character, like, the bad funny character archetype. But, like, yeah, I mean, film school friends in film school, like, it does create this kind of network. There's still people that I talk to. I keep tabs on, like, what they're doing and what gigs they've gotten and stuff like that. And, people from film school have reached out to me being like, hey, are you around? Can you do this? And unfortunately, I also moved away from my kind of network. Yeah, which, like, was awesome for its own reasons. But then, in terms of filmmaking was kind of rough. But, so I think that is such an important aspect about it. And, I think it gives you a more worldly perspective. Just because you talk to people who are so different from you, and people that very strong personalities, very timid personalities, and you kind of learn to navigate that world. And I remember one of the things that Glenn Petrie told me. This is the shoot that I was the production manager on, and one of the actors was like, I need this specific brand of cookie. And,
okay.
And mind you, this was a student film. Yeah. And, like, this guy was taking it way too seriously. And as the production manager, I had to figure out how to get these cookies to this man. And I'm sitting on the back porch of this house that we're filming in, sobbing, just, like, crying my eyes out.
What kind of cookie was it?
It was the Keebler, like, it has the chocolate on the bottom, and then it's like what are they called? And they have the little waves of chocolate on it. It's like a wafer that has a hole in the middle.
With the Irish-looking leprechaun guy on the front?
Yeah, with that one.
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about. Fudge swirls. Are they? Or are they not fudge swirls?
I think it is fudge swirls.
It might be, yeah.
Well, anyway.
You couldn't find them anywhere?
So, the problem was we were 30 miles from anything. We were filming this in the middle of nowhere, Louisiana. Like,
okay.
It was, like, in this, like, little ranch house, like, again, in the middle of nowhere. And we kept having to drive back and forth places. I had hit a raccoon the night before, and it had bit...
Wait, what? Wait, you bit a raccoon or a raccoon bit you?
No, I hit a raccoon.
Oh, you hit a raccoon? Yeah. With your car?
With my car.
Oh,
so the bottom of my car had bent back, like that little metal piece of my car. It had, like, crushed.
Jesus
and
Christ.
It was, like, scraping on the ground. I had crawled under, had blood all over me.
Oh, no.
Had taped it up. Like, so I didn't want to drive my car.
Yeah.
Also,
for fudge swirls.
Yeah, for fudge swirls. The PA that we had who was going to go get him, I didn't know her very well.
Okay.
Turns out she was super awesome. Really like her. She became our boom pole operator. Okay. But I didn't know her enough, but she didn't have a car. So she would have to drive my car to go get these fudge swirls. So I'm sitting on the back porch just sobbing my eyes out to the point where they could hear it in the tape. So my professor comes out, and Glenn, he walks me over. There's like this chicken coop, whatever. We're standing next to the chickens, and Glenn's like, "What the hell is going on?" He's like, "Dude, like, what is happening?" And I'm like, "He wants these cookies, and like, I can't get them." And Glenn was like, "Aiden, get that man his fucking cookies, because guess what? He has to wake up with himself tomorrow, and you don't have to ever wake up and see his face again.
Yes, sir.
Give him his cookies so he'll say the fucking line so we can move on." So he was like, "You get in the car. You get in the car right now. We don't need a production manager. You're staring at chickens. Go drive, get the cookies, cool off, and then come back." And I felt like that was just like the first time that I had worked with someone who had pushed me to my limits, and just my teacher just being like, "You gotta let these things roll off."
Yeah.
Like, it's not important. Like, and I think that was the most difficult person I've worked with to this day. But, like, that's what you learn in filmmaking. It's just, like, keep the actors happy so they'll say their lines, and just try to keep everyone else happy. Like, just try. And I think, like, that when I look back on it, it's, like, a stupid thing that happened. But it was, like, a really profound moment for me, because I realized that I was putting so much anxiety into things that didn't matter. It was like I was thinking about the raccoon that I hit and, like, all this shit. And I'm like, it wasn't that important. Yeah. Like, it, and so, like...
Well, I think the raccoon would disagree, but...
Well, he hobbled away. He was like, "Hey, in Louisiana, we just, we call that gumbo. We just put it in the stew the next day."
Yeah, I've never hit a raccoon before my shoot, but, I guess since you talked about your negative filming experience, we could go into some of the, I guess, negative aspects of film school. There's just a couple for me. Some of them are bigger than others. I think it all depends on your situation. I'll just say straight up, if you can't pay for school straight up and you're going to have to take student loans, don't know if I'd recommend film school. Yeah. My in-debt ass doesn't have a good time with it right now. And I just remember there's one thing I'll never forget. It's kind of a shitty thing in perspective now that I think about it. So there was a time where the school, this is like my senior year, I think, they wanted to hire a new professor, and how they were doing it was they were inviting like the top 4 candidates to come in and teach like a pretend class. So I was one of the 4 kids asked to go in this class. Like, I think it was the Patrick Stettner guy. I was like, "Hey Chase, we're looking at some candidates. Would you mind sitting in on this guy's like hour talk to see how we could review him as a potential teacher?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, sounds good." So we go in, and this dude does like this icebreaker thing. And he's like, "Okay, we're all going to stand in a circle." I'm like, "Okay, you're one of these guys. But let's do it. Okay, let's do your icebreaker thing."
Oh, God.
And he would say the idea was, okay, I'm going to say something. If you've done it, you step forward or whatever. And he would say like some dumb shit. Like, if you ever had a slice of pizza, and everyone's like, "Oh, yeah, I had a slice of pizza. We're from fucking New Jersey, of course." Then it would just be like dumb shit. And it came to the point where he was like, "If you've taken out a student loan, step forward." And I was the only kid that stepped forward. And I was like, "Oh, I'm dumb as fuck." Yeah, I'm like, I'm one of these kids. Okay. So it was definitely like an eye-opening experience for me, where I was like, I think like, I believe myself in the point that I know down the line I'm going to be a successful dude just by the way I actually do shit. But I do think there's something to be said where if you are going to have to take out a decent amount of student loans, I wouldn't recommend film school. Or just find, like, there's some community college classes that'll teach, like, they'll give you the equipment that you'll learn how to do something.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that isn't talked about. I mean, if you're listening to this, you might not be in college yet. But if you aren't in college yet, it's definitely something like when I was 17, I was like, oh yeah, of course I'm going to have to take out loans. Just because I feel like 18-year-olds, even though we think we're smart, we're dumb as shit. And we don't really know the consequences of actions of taking out debt like that.
Because you don't know the real value of money.
Yeah, you think, oh yeah, it's only 25 grand, which is stupid to think about. I mean, I don't know. That was like my biggest thing with it. We don't even have to really go too in depth if you don't want to.
No.
With the money thing.
I was actually lucky. So LSU, Louisiana has this program where if you are born in Louisiana, you can get something called TOPS. So I was only paying $800 a semester.
That's fucking sweet.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I fortunately did not have that problem, but I don't think I would have majored in a liberal arts section if I did have to take out loans. Because, like, my dad's a doctor. So my dad went, you go to school, you go to college, you go to med school. Like, there was a plan, a trajectory to get to where he was going. I think the biggest thing I have struggled with post-graduation is the fact that there's no blueprint. Like, there's no... It's not like you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Like, you're just kind of, like, there, and you got to figure it out. And there's a liberty in that, but there's also... It's kind of scary, because
it's kind of like the equivalent of being on a set. Like, when you really think about it, it's the same type thing.
You're just like... you're so lost, but you're supposed to be doing something.
You're like, I'm supposed to be lost. It's crazy.
And so I think, like, for me, that's been the biggest thing is, like, financially, film school is always going to be a gamble, whether you take out loans or not. Because post-graduation, there is no guarantee of a job.
Yeah.
There is no... you might have great connections, your parents might be in the industry, all those things can help you. But I think, both of us were homegrown filmmakers. We didn't come from backgrounds of people, we didn't have all these amazing connections. My parents have always been supportive, but I wasn't given, like, huge cameras or anything like that. And so, I think, like, that has always been the struggle that I have had. Is, like, I think I had this, like, delusion in my head, not delusion, but kind of like hope in my head that everything would just fall into place, and I would just all of a sudden be getting great gigs and all these stuff. And also, I think the other thing to remember with a career in the industry is it is gig based. You are not working at one company for the rest of your life and have healthcare and all these things, which, once you get to a certain degree, you get healthcare through, like, through the unions and stuff like that. But it's not as set. You could have 4 gigs one year and 2 gigs the next year. And so I think, like, that's the scary gamble of it, is there is no, there is no path to success. But that gets existential. What's success? So it's like, like, it really just depends on what you want. It depends on, do you want to be wealthy? If you want to be wealthy, this might not be the career for you, because the chances of you becoming incredibly rich through this are not that great. Yeah. Can you make a living? Absolutely. But I think, like, so it's just, I think at 17 years old, it's very difficult to figure out what you want. Do you want to be married? Do you want to own a house? Like, those are things that once you're, 24, you more think about it. And you're like, well, financially, I need to be making X amount of money in order to have the lifestyle that I want.
And when a camera is the cost of 2 cars, you're like, oh.
You're like, do I want to drive, or do I want to have...
Or am I taking the bike? What are we doing?
So it's like, I think at 17, 18 years old, it is difficult to understand what you're getting into, and the real world consequences of choosing a major that is a little bit more, up to interpretation for what happens after you graduate. And that's scary. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think this year has been the scariest year of my life because I don't have consistent work.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm only 24. I hope this is the scariest year of my whole life.
It probably will. I think for most
because
people,
it's like you only go up from here.
Yeah.
So it's like I know that, you know, this industry is also very temperamental, and, you know, gigs come and go and stuff like that. So it's like those are all things that you have to take into consideration when deciding what you want to do. For
sure. And I think kind of going off that, the one, I think it might not even be a problem with film school. I think it just comes down to the individual. Whether you like it or not, everybody, if you want to actually make it in the film industry, you have to be like a hustler. And
yeah.
I know you could say that applies to every single job, but at least like
it's different.
Yeah, if you have an accounting major, you don't hustling will get you a better job or better pay, but like it's pretty, I don't want to say easy, but you could find an accounting job where you kind of just chill at. Filmmaking, part of what makes it so exciting and part of what makes it scary as fuck at the same exact time is like you wake up, you're like, okay, let's see what the world's got. Let's see what's out there. And I think, because I also do this thing of like, not intentionally, but sometimes I'll be like, oh, what are kids in my class like doing right now? And I feel like the kids that are doing, I don't want to say better than ours, because I obviously 2020 was just such a fucking crazy year that's unfair to say awful. Like people are doing better than others, but it's like some people just have a natural hustle to them that the class never really teaches. Like I think film school definitely tells you it's not going to be easy, but I don't think they tell you how actually fucking hard it is at the same time. And like you said, no matter what college degree you get, unless you really get like a medical degree or become a lawyer, there's no guarantee on a job when you graduate at all. But even more so in film school, it's like you said, can you make a shit ton of money as a filmmaker? Absolutely, if you know how to navigate it and you never give up, and you there's a couple crucial decisions. Like I'm reading this book, you might actually like it, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. I'm reading right now. Crazy.
George Lucas is crazy with his journey.
Crazy, yeah. Like there's time, give up. Dude. The book is just insane. How like this dude was pretty much borderline gonna kill himself. He's like, I have no money. My house is on the line. No one wants this stupid Star Wars idea. And then he made Star Wars. So it's like it's one of those weird things where there's some luck involved. Most of it's just like being able to wake up and be like, oh, okay, we're doing this again. You know, that's really what it comes down to. And I guess that would be. Like I said, I don't know if that's necessarily like a flaw in film school, because it's like you can't really teach anybody how to do that. Yeah,
and I mean, I think that like I would say you're probably more successful than I am, and I think you are.
I don't think so.
Yes, you are.
No, we're not.
Because that is the part of film that has always killed me. I feel like a bother. Like when I don't like reaching out to people to get opportunities because it makes me nervous. And like that, I think technically speaking, I'm a great filmmaker. Like technically in terms of what I can produce, my attention to detail is 100% there. I know I can make great products. I struggle so much with the hustling aspect of it. I get very overwhelmed by it. Like I remember,
too, man. I feel it.
And it's just like I've never figured out a way to find my voice in that way, and that's why I don't get gigs. And that's why, you know, I think part of it's confidence, and I think like because so much of filmmaking is not only your portfolio, but being able to sell yourself and like sell your portfolio and stuff like that. And it's like I am so hypercritical of my own work that if one thing in my work doesn't look right, I won't put it in my portfolio. Yeah. Even if it's incredible, even if like there is so much of it that is so useful. And so I think it's like that you were just talking about just like really hit home with me, because it's like in school, these projects are given to you. It's a steady flow of projects you're constantly creating. That's not how it is. And if you don't know how to get those resources, and if you don't know how to like put yourself out there, and like I always fall into this trap, well, if I just had this piece of equipment, then I would be more marketable. If I just knew how to do this, if I knew how to do that. And it's like, no, it's just you gotta hit the ground running, and you gotta want it. And like I have a buddy who's in LA, and he's a assistant editor, and he's been very successful out there. And we were talking one time, and I was just like, like the biggest thing I struggle with is like not like being nervous to put myself out there because I'm so scared to get shot down. And he's like, you just got to do it. Like, that's the difference between me and you. He was like, I wanted to make this a reality, and I did. I moved to LA and I got jobs. He was like, I worked at a coffee shop for 8 months, just showing anyone and everyone who would watch my stuff, who would walk in, who said that they were interested in film when he was on bar, and he would show. And one guy, while he was making a latte, he was talking with my friend, and my friend was talking about how he wanted to make films, and this guy was like, okay, show me your work. That's who he's been working for the past year and a half. Yeah. And it's like, I would never do that. And it's like, how do you teach that? That's, I feel like, something that's inherent in some people. And that would be, and Chase and I were talking about this before we started, I'm actually going to grad school for something that's not film. And I think the number one reason why I've decided to divert away from film is I don't think that I have that quality in myself. I don't think that and I think that is one of the very big things that is so difficult to know about yourself at 17 and 18. Like, there are some qualities that I think put you at an advantage to be a filmmaker, and if you don't have them, you are going to work twice as hard, and if you aren't willing to work twice as hard, it's not going to work. And that was like a really hard realization that I kind of had. Like, I'm not giving up on filmmaking, obviously. Like, that's still something I'm very passionate about. It's just I realized that I needed to have a backup plan, because I just, like, too polite is the wrong thing to say because I'm very brash and like whatever. But you've worked with me before. In professional situations, I'm very submissive. I'm very like, not like, but you know what I mean, like in terms of like politeness to people, like
I mean, you're a nice
stuff
guy.
Like that. But like, I really struggle with verbalizing what I want. And so I think like that was something that like I just like realized like this isn't something that at this point in my life I can make a career out of. I just don't have the drive to do it. I don't have, the hustle. Like I don't have it. It makes me uncomfortable to send people emails asking for work. And like, if you want to be in an industry like this, that even if it makes you uncomfortable, you have to do it. And it's like, I haven't gotten to the place where like I can do it. Like I've had people lob opportunities to me and I just don't take them because I get nervous that I'm gonna come off as needy or something like that. And it's like that is something that I wish that I had self-reflected on 5 years ago, but I wouldn't. All that being said, I would not want to give up any of the experiences I had in film school. I think that it was the right choice for me at that time. I think that the skills that I've learned are something that I wouldn't want to give up. It's still my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite thing to get lost in. And I think that kind of, brings me to my actual point, which is you can go to film school, realize that you don't want to be a filmmaker, and still be happy with what you are doing. Like, and that goes for any major. When you were in college is this time period, it's 4 years where you just get to have fun, figure out who you are, what you want to do, and then you leave it and you're in the world and it looks completely different. And you're going to realize some things that maybe you thought you liked and thought you didn't like aren't aligning. And that's okay. You evolve as a person, but you don't have to give up on those passions. I am always going to be a photographer. I will always call myself a photographer. I will always be a videographer. My kids are going to have the best home videos that you have ever seen. Sir. But am I probably going to make a career out of it? Probably not. And, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think my degree was a waste. I don't think that I would be the person that I am today, which I like that person I've worked really hard for, if I hadn't gone through those experiences.
First of all, you're a great filmmaker, and I think I will be seeing Aiden Craver. I always get it mixed up. I'm dyslexic.
I actually don't have a name.
it's just Aiden, from what I know.
It's Aiden, period, like Beyonce.
Yeah, yes, sir. Make the statement. Yeah. So I'm going to see directed by Aiden, just Aiden, at some point in my life.
It's me.
Yeah, but dude, I feel you, because like, first of all, I'm not a successful filmmaker. I'm kind of someone that's still trying to be successful one day. But my biggest struggle, I think, because being a filmmaker, you are almost obligated to be an entrepreneur. Like I think that's the one thing that film school didn't really nail was, I think instead of the film history, I think there should be some base of film, maybe like one big film history class, and then all the other film history classes we had to take implement some sort of like business or like future proofing classes where it was like, a lot of people complain like, high school didn't teach me how to pay my taxes, high school didn't teach me about mortgages. Film school, almost, I feel like no one does it, is obligated to teach kids how to get work, and I feel like it's never really touched on unless
such a good point.
Unless you actually talk to a teacher, because you need to be able to negotiate. It's not like you go into an interview and you could kind of negotiate your salary a little bit depending on the job, but it's very much like, how do you pitch yourself? How do you put yourself against competition? Like, and it's one of those things I'm still learning, man. Like, maybe it's not good to put on the record, I hate reaching out to people. Like, the first thing I'm doing, I'm not buying a nice car, I'm not buying a mansion, I'm not buying anything, I'm not going on vacation. The first thing I do when I have like a decent amount of money coming in, I just want to pay someone $500 a week to reach out to everybody for me. Dude, I can't.
Just have an assistant.
Dude, I mean, it's like, hey, just please, for 3 hours a day, contact people for me, and then just send me what gigs I'm doing. Because it's like, that's the biggest, I think, thing from holding me back. I'm like, I can't stand, because it's very much like, you have to reach out to probably borderline 100 people a day. And just like in every department, whether it's a YouTuber, whether it's someone working on a feature film, whether it's someone that has a local brewery, whether it's a restaurant, whatever it is, you have to be constantly reaching out to people. And you got to get really used to rejection. And it's not even like, no, your work sucks. It's like, hey, sorry, but we're working with somebody already. Hey, sorry, we don't have the budget for this right now. Hey, sorry, it's a pandemic. We don't want to pay for this right now. And it's kind of just being able to, because there's mornings I wake up, I'm like, fuck, am I really going to do this again? And I like sit at my computer, and I'm like, yep, because what the fuck else am I going to do at this point? So it's just back into it. And I think it'll just take off at some point. Like, sometimes you get that strike, and you're like, you know what, maybe God's real. Because you get that one gig because you are so deflated, and you're like, God, maybe I should just go like get a random job that I'm capable of.
Throw the towel in,
Yeah, and then you'll get this glimmer of hope of like, hey, here you go. And then it's like, okay, and we're back at it again. So, I think that's the one thing, if you're getting into this, I think that's what differentiates just, I don't even know if it differentiates anybody. It's just like, fuck, I wish somebody taught me more business shit in film school. And maybe that's kind of on me. Maybe I should have knew that ahead of time. But at the same time,
it's like, how are you supposed to know that you needed to know that, though?
There should have been one class of like, here's the different ways, whether that be getting freelance gigs for making videos for companies, whether that be working as a PA on a set, whether that be here's how you navigate film festivals. Like, I just didn't really feel like film school touched on any of that. And I'm glad I learned some things at film school. Did I learn more on YouTube? Probably. And I think that was another thing of like, I learned, we kind of talked about you learn through failure, but specifically, I'll encounter a problem and I immediately go to YouTube. How do I fix this specific problem? And from that point on, if I ever encounter that problem again, I have the resource. And that's, I mean, you could say it's the internet taking over school in general, but it's like one of those things you can't go to your film professor unless it's happening in that moment and be like, hey, how do I solve this? You kind of have to use the internet as my business
and
rant,
also, like, things are very specific in film. Like, if there's a technical issue, chances are, and there's so many different cameras, like so many different things, like it's just, film school could not encompass everything. And especially those very small technical issues, like, of course you're going to go to YouTube because you find that random YouTuber who, for
their whole channel's based on that camera.
And they've seen that issue a million times, and, so it's like, it is, I completely agree with you. I think that technically they set you up very well for success. Film schools do. But I think you're right. I think that having a business element of it would have just, like, learning how to market yourself, learning how to talk to people from a business perspective, learning how to talk about money is just, like, incredibly difficult. Like, how do you have those conversations? How do you even do an invoice for someone? Like, like, all of these things, those are not things that I know how to do. And those are things that would have been so useful. And so, I'm sure every single person in every single major can pick apart their department and find things that they wish were in it. I do think, 10 years from now, the conversations we would be having about film school are very different than the ones that we're having now.
I think just college in general.
Yeah. I think, we are moving in a positive direction. We were both saying that we went to schools where our film programs were brand spanking new. Mm-hmm. So it's the fact that these are even being cultivated places and stuff like that, that's incredible. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I think, my advice to anyone thinking about film school would just be, have fun with it, but be realistic. This isn't an industry where you just beep bop around and all of a sudden you're a millionaire.
Yeah.
And also go into it for the right reasons. Liking movies isn't necessarily going to carry you through a career. You have to have drive. You have to have something that you want to say. And that doesn't mean it's always the same thing you want to say. But, you have to have ideas. You have to be... Just because you like James Bond movies doesn't mean that you're going to be the next great filmmaker. Mm-hmm. So I think just, being honest with yourself, having those conversations early on, because it's going to be tough, It's called the artist's life for a reason. But at the same time, if it's something that you're passionate about and there are people in your life that don't think you can make it, you are the only one that will define your own success. Don't let other people tell you that this is not an opportunity you should take, because if you know in your heart of hearts that you would forever regret not doing it, then do it. Just know, be realistic. That's the only thing. No matter what you do in life, just research it well, You also don't need to go to the top film schools. You do not need to pay $160,000 a year to get a degree. You said, you can go to community college. Actually, the best film school in the state of Louisiana is at University of New Orleans, which is not a community school. It's kind of in between a state school and a community school. It's very inexpensive and has a fantastic film program. So I think that's also one thing. And you were talking about with the debt earlier, this may not have a huge payout at the end of it, so be smart with your financial decisions if you're going to do it. You do not need to go to NYU. Mm-hmm. You do not need to go to these fancy brand name schools. You can find a really good program, and probably the benefits of going to that really big program is it's going to be a smaller program. They're going to have a lot of resources for you, all of these things. In those brand name schools, it's just the name. You know what I mean? So it's I think that's one thing I would caution on. Also, do not go to Full Sail University. They don't sue you, but I've heard that it's a pyramid scheme or something.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole other video one day. I mean, Aiden almost got involved in a pyramid scheme.
We did.
I hit up Aiden. I was like, man, we're both unemployed. It sounds really good. And then my third interview with the guy, I was like, or no, it wasn't even my third interview. It was the orientation day I had. I was like, oh shit, I gotta call Aiden. And I told my friend DJ too. And I called Aiden, and Aiden was like, yeah, I just had the first webinar interview thing. He's like, it's definitely a pyramid scheme or whatever. I was like, yeah, it definitely is. So.
Well, and it's crazy because on LinkedIn, if you live in Orlando, Florida, and you're on LinkedIn and there's a marketing company, do your research, because I've had 3 now that turned out to be pyramid schemes.
Really? 3?
Yeah. And they all start... That's how I knew it was one, because it started with that first initial interview, and I just was like, this is going to be a pyramid scheme. Because the other 2... Yeah, it's just so if you're in Orlando, Florida, and you're on LinkedIn, and people are reaching out to you from management companies... Just do your
specifically
research.
All out management, you fuckers.
Yeah, y'all are gonna go to jail.
Yeah,
they use suicides of children.
Yeah, they use suicides of children to sell to people. I was like, I was just like, I would morally feel wrong being with this company. I was just like, I can't go to see
y'all
this.
Are literally going to burn straight in hell.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so that was the podcast. I guess that's a good place to end it. This is Aiden, everybody. Like you said, just Aiden, no other last name. Aiden, is there a social media you want to plug, or maybe an upcoming project you want people to be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So if you want to follow me, it's Aiden Craver on pretty much everything. I also have an Instagram called Brenton Studios, which has all my photography and film stuff. And then I have a website, which is www.studiosbrenton.com.
Yes, sir.
I was like, it's the reverse. So yeah, if you want to follow me on there, and see my stuff. And then I have an upcoming project I'm super excited about. I have a really good friend of mine who is transgender, female to male, and he just had top surgery, which is the removal of your chest. So I'm doing a short doc of him. So I'm really excited for that. So it'll be probably stuff about it will be posted on all my social media. So if you have any queer listeners,
sounds good. Then go to Aiden. He's got the content coming for you. For me, I guess if you're on the podcast, you're looking at our faces. You're on YouTube. We got the audio version. Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, all the classic places you can catch it. If you're listening on those places and you're like, damn, I want to see these people's faces, there's a YouTube channel. Well, that's why we got the camera set up right here. Still early on in the process. I know it's only my homies listening right now, but that's okay, because I can document, because Aiden is not unfortunately, good for him moving away out of Orlando, but it's like, I get to talk to Aiden on camera, and then 5 years from now, when we're both doing our thing, I can look back, I'm like, damn, I got to sit down with Aiden in my
You should come to New Orleans, visit.
Nothing definite yet, because my goal for the year is be debt-free first, but it's eventually going to be, we want to do a road trip to Austin because we're considering maybe one day moving to Austin.
Orleans,
and we were saying New Orleans is on the way, so we're thinking like 2 days in New Orleans, 4 days in Austin, come back 2 more days in New Orleans, and come back sometime in the summer. So if that does happen, I'm gonna hit your line.
Absolutely, hit me up, and I got couches and floors to sleep on.
Hey, we'd love to hear that for sure. Aiden, I end my podcasts by asking the guests what you think the outro would be. Like, what would the outro that I come up with be for this podcast, in your opinion?
I don't know. That's
Anything.
Such a hard question.
I know, that's why I ask it.
I don't know. Something with you throwing up a peace sign. No.
Sounds good. Oh, no? What would it be?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'll go with the peace sign.
Okay.
Not good. That's
Sounds
more
good.
something I would do, but...
Okay.